And it's Christine Hunsinger. Thank you so much for coming on in today.
Good to see you.
Put your right foot over here.
There you go.
Very much appreciate it. Christine Hunsinger, former executive director of the Moderate Party, former high-level staffer for Governor Lincoln Chafee, and now doing consulting work.
That's right.
Yes, and wanted to bring you in for your perspective of the shakeups that look like are happening sort of as we speak.
Right now.
Literally as we speak, with Senator Teresa Paiva-Weed, Senate President, making the big announcement today, looking to go to the Hospital Association of Rhode Island. What does this shakeup hold for the General Assembly?
It'll be interesting because the job of a number two is to kind of stand behind the number one. And so Leader Ruggiero has issues of his own that he cares about. So we'll see what takes priority that hasn't in the past. Senator Paiva-Weed has been a big champion for social service programs, and Leader Ruggiero is more focused on economic development and jobs. So we'll see who picks up the mantle on the social service side.
Now, as we said, as literally as we speak, do we know yet when she's going to be leaving?
4:30 was the press conference, and I don't believe it started yet.
I'm here, they're there. I'm trying to be in two places
at
once.
The Senate has passed a resolution announcing March is maple syrup month, though, so that's where we are.
That's where we are. Everyone's waiting to hear from the Senate President. Let's play out a couple of scenarios. If she were to leave fairly quickly, she already set forth sort of her agenda this year. If there was a power change sort of mid-cycle, what does that mean, especially working with the governor's office and sort of how they piece together what it was they'd be supporting? Is it just sort of all holds barred? I mean, everything's off the table now. I mean, is it just the Wild West?
Well, I think you'll see a reordering of priorities. The Senate President had her criminal justice package that didn't pass last year, made it known that she wanted it to pass this year. Been heard in the Senate. I'm not sure if it's been heard in the House, but not a lot of traction there.
Yes.
This year, the mental health package on behalf of the Senate President, I think she was the sponsor. So we'll see whether or not, if it is in fact Leader Ruggiero who takes over, champions those causes as well.
And what does it mean to the Hospital Association of Rhode Island to get the Senate President? Now, revolving door statute, I mean, she's not going to, with a year out, she can't de facto lobby, but how big is it for them to get her on board?
Well, it's interesting because she is a creature of the Senate, obviously, and most of the budget is decided in the House. So we'll see how that actually works. It'll also be interesting, I think, for her, having been on the governor's side for reinventing Medicaid, which resulted in cuts for hospitals, now to be on the other side and to see how that impacts those organizations directly. So I'm not sure what it means for the Hospital Association, but it's a big, high-profile thing, so they're probably happy today.
And talk to us about the interaction, having worked in the governor's staff and having to have sort of your champions there and the close relationship. How close would you say Senator Paiva-Weed is with the governor's office and with the governor?
It would appear this year that they're very much in lockstep,
yes,
and that there's more disagreements between the governor and the speaker or the House. So it'll definitely be some rejiggering of priorities, and how the new Senate President interacts with the Speaker will probably determine where the governor winds up on this triad of who's ahead.
The moving power structure. And as you mentioned, again, we're looking at, there's this speculation that, again, it's going to be Ruggiero.
Can't see your Twitter feed.
Twitter. So, things are happening as we speak. But, does it put the governor at the disadvantage, no matter how you look at it, to have lost this big ally in Paiva-Weed?
Well, I think it'll depend on not just who's Senate President, but also who's the leader and whether or not that changes committee structures and how that reorganizes. I think the big question will be who picks up the mantle that the Senate President leaves behind, because a lot of those programs are in line with where the governor is right now.
And you said you were just up there yesterday.
I was back there, yes.
Back in the halls. You have roamed the halls. Obviously, a few kind of hot button issues up there right now. Do you see marijuana getting legalized this year?
Well, it's a switch now because the Senate President had not been overly in favor, and now apparently the leader, if he takes over, is in favor of it. So I'm not sure. I think there'll be more movement on it, but I don't know that this is the year for it.
Yeah, and if it gets pushed into next year, being really insightful for an election, don't you think it makes it nearly impossible if it gets kicked to next year to move forward next year?
So I'm not aware what the numbers are about Rhode Island and where they are in legalized marijuana. You hear arguments on both sides that make some sense. So I think there'll be a lot of work done to forward that issue and to move the public to support it. And so if the public support is there, it might not be quite such the failing issue in an election year.
Do you see the governor's proposal for the free college tuition moving forward?
I don't know. That's interesting. I'm not sure where it is right now. The House has expressed a lot of doubts. Senate President was on board, but again, as number two, you stand behind number one. I think we'll wait to see where Leader Ruggiero is, should he be the new Senate President, on that issue, as well as the new leadership.
How much does he get to drive, assuming the leadership role after a departure? And again, we don't know the time frame at this structure, but if it is in the near future, how much of, I don't want to say her legacy, but sort of her agenda, is that just sort of scrapped and he just sort of takes the mantle?
Well, they've worked very closely for a long time and had a great relationship. So I think if she were to leave today, a conversation would have been had saying these things are important to me, and I think he would make every effort to make sure that they had the public hearing and a vote, and he would do what he could. But again, he has his own set of priorities. So when you get to be number one, you'll forward those instead of someone else's.
Now, as you may have seen, it was several weeks ago now, we had your former boss, Governor and Senator Lincoln Chafee, in here talking about a number of things. He had talked with Russian media about the Trump administration. We talked about 38 studios. We talked about the state's economic development policies. And he was kind of feeling his stride. He felt like he was kind of vindicated on the approach with recouping the losses of 38 studios, talking about, we all know that he has a focus and a love for international relations. Would you see him throwing his hat back in the ring after, having done so on the presidential side? Is there anything, do you think, left in him or any interest level to get back into the public arena?
I have huge respect for Governor Chafee, and he is always true to himself. Much of what he said on your show a few weeks ago is what he was saying all the time he was governor. So I'm sure he feels vindicated. He's a tough read. I'm not sure whether or not he's interested in doing it again, but if he is, I'm sure he will.
He did make the point. I think he did mention if he said he was going to make a run, he was going to tell me first.
Oh, well, then you can call and tell me. But he marches to the beat of his own drum, and so if he decides that's what he wants to do, he will most certainly do it.
Well, what else are you keeping an eye on up at the State House this session? You're working on some things. I mean, everyone knows the sort of hot button issues, the car tax issue, marijuana legalization, the governor's free college tuition proposal. But what else, maybe some of the sleeper issues or things that you're personally, think that might have a big impact on the state that you're working on?
So I think what's really interesting to watch is the changes at the federal level and how the state will respond to them and how they're getting ready for it, because the state's going to have some big decisions to make about what it chooses to fund with state money that used to be funded with federal money if a lot of the cuts materialize. And tomorrow, the Affordable Care Act vote. And so a lot of tough choices ahead for Rhode Island leaders and what they value and think is important, where they put their money, and what has to fall by the wayside. So that, I think, is very interesting.
A lot remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anything else you're keeping an eye on up there?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Just watching the budget, because that's always my area of interest.
Yes, we did have you in to just talk with you when the governor put forth her budget proposal to kind of poke through, and obviously we'll do so when it comes out of the House. You know it inside and out. How do you like being on the other side of things as opposed to being up there and working for the governor?
I love working for my clients, and they do all kinds of good work and things like that. It's not necessarily as adrenaline focused as being in the State House, but that has its good sides too. My children recognize me. I know all their names. So I like it a lot. Only every now and then do I miss the crazy of the State House.
Would you ever, if the right candidate come along, get pulled back into the political side of things?
I've learned to never say never. It is not where I'm focused now. So it would have to be the right person.
And having worked with Ken Block, he's very non-committal at this point. Do you envision him getting involved? And not from your involvement per se, just as a complete outsider.
Right, and I haven't spoken to Ken about whether or not he'll run for governor. What I do know is that once you get bitten by the political bug, you tend to not be able to shake that. It's tough to get rid of, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him get in it again.
Wouldn't be surprised. Well, again, so much going on. I appreciate your coming in to sort of parse things, having been up there. Christine Hunsinger, again, the former director of the Moderate Party here, staffer for Governor Chafee, now high-level consultant who was able to break down for us what it might mean for, again, this departure of Senate President Teresa Paiva-Weed, when it might occur, and what that means for the power structure up at the State House. But as you mentioned, keep an eye on the federal funding, because that's really going to have a huge impact here on the state. I'm sure we'll talk with you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll let you go back to the task at hand.